The void between stars rarely trembled. But on this day, something was different. Captain Corlex of the Zarkax Imperium's reconnaissance fleet studied the holographic display with a mixture of professional detachment and barely concealed disdain. The blue-green planet before him seemed laughably primitive, a backwater world that barely registered as a footnote in the galactic archives. Scattered satellite networks drifted in loose orbital patterns, their technology so rudimentary that most advanced civilizations would have considered them little more than cosmic debris. His flagship, the Stellar Dominance, represented the pinnacle of Zarkax engineering. Sleek metallic surfaces absorbed and refracted light, its hull a complex network of adaptive metamaterials that could withstand direct bombardment from most known weapon systems. 5 kilometers of pure military might, the ship had been the instrument of the Imperium's expansion across 17 distinct galactic sectors. Preliminary scans, Corlex demanded, his translator rendering his native clicking language into standard galactic communication protocols. First Officer Zelnak approached, mandibles clicking with calculated precision, minimal defensive capabilities, rudimentary nuclear propulsion in their limited space exploration vehicles. No evidence of advanced shielding or interstellar weapon systems. A note of almost patronizing amusement colored his report. The planet's designation was simple: Earth. Sector classification: unremarkable. Projected resistance: negligible. Unbeknownst to the Zarkax, deep within a mountain complex in Colorado, a very different assessment was being made. Jennifer Hamilton leaned over a holographic display that made the Zarkax systems look like children's toys. Her fingers traced complex quantum algorithms, each movement revealing layers of strategic complexity that would be incomprehensible to most human minds, let alone alien ones. "They're coming," she murmured, not to anyone in particular, but as a statement of fact. The underground facility, known officially as the Integrated Defense Research Complex, was a marvel of human engineering that existed in complete secrecy. Hundreds of the world's most brilliant minds worked in carefully compartmentalized sections, each team developing technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. In one section, quantum computing experts worked alongside biomechanical engineers. In another, AI specialists collaborated with experts in molecular reconfiguration. Every room hummed with potential. The potential to transform humanity's understanding of warfare, of technology, of survival. Captain Corlex would have laughed had he known the truth. The Zarkax had conquered civilizations that possessed technology centuries ahead of what their initial scan suggested humanity owned. They had reduced advanced species to cosmic dust, stripped entire planetary systems of resources, and expanded their imperium with ruthless efficiency. But they had never encountered humanity. The first warning came as a subtle anomaly in the Zarkax ship's quantum communication network. A microscopic distortion, so small that most communication officers would have dismissed it as a standard background interference. But not here. Not today. On the Stellar Dominance, a junior communication specialist named Vornak felt something shift. A hint of something. Not quite an error, not quite a message, just a whisper of complexity that didn't match any known communication protocol. "Sir," Vornak called out, his voice slightly uncertain, "I'm detecting an unusual quantum signature." Corlex didn't even turn. "Calibrate your systems and ignore it." But the whisper remained, a hint of the storm that was coming. In the mountain complex, Jennifer Hamilton allowed herself the smallest of smiles. The first move was about to be made, and the Zarkax had no idea what was coming. Humanity was ready, and ready meant something entirely different than any species in the galaxy could possibly understand. The Rocky Mountain facility was more than a military installation. It was humanity's most audacious experiment in survival. Dr. Andrew Collins moved between holographic displays, his fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Each projection represented a different layer of what the military had cryptically labeled the Adaptive Response Initiative, a project that had consumed the last 2 decades of human technological innovation. Surrounding him, a team of 237 researchers represented the absolute pinnacle of human intellectual achievement. Quantum physicists worked alongside neuroscientists. Biomechanical engineers collaborated with artificial intelligence specialists. Theoretical mathematicians shared workspace with molecular reconfiguration experts. Every single person in this facility understood something fundamental. Humanity's survival would depend on thinking beyond conventional limitations. System integration at 68.3%, called out Dr. Rebecca Martinez, her eyes never leaving the complex neural network displays. Quantum entanglement stabilization is holding at 92% efficiency. Andrew nodded, a slight smile playing across his lips. What looked like incomprehensible data to an outside observer was actually the blueprint for humanity's most advanced defensive system. Traditional military thinking viewed weapons as tools. Here, they were creating living systems that could think, adapt, and evolve. The primary breakthrough had come from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. By integrating quantum computing with advanced neural network algorithms, the team had essentially created a new form of intelligence. Not just an artificial intelligence, but a cooperative system that could learn, predict, and transform faster than any known computational method. Each proposed defensive vessel was more than a machine. It was a quantum-integrated combat organism designed to process threats in milliseconds, with the ability to reconfigure its entire structural and weapon systems on the fly. Where traditional military design sought to create the most powerful weapon, this approach focused on creating the most adaptive intelligence. In a secured laboratory adjacent to the main facility, prototype modules underwent continuous stress testing. These weren't traditional ship components. They were living systems that could heal themselves, redesign their internal structures, and learn from every simulation. We're not just preparing for a potential invasion, Andrew explained to a visiting military oversight committee earlier that week. We're redefining the entire concept of defensive technology. The committee had been skeptical. Decades of military procurement had taught them to be cautious of revolutionary claims. But the data was undeniable. Simulations showed these new vessels could adapt to threats in ways that defied traditional military logic. Rebecca approached with a new set of calculations. The quantum prediction models are showing something interesting. Our adaptive response time has increased by another 0.03 seconds in the latest simulation. To most, that would seem insignificant. But in the world of high-speed combat, 0.03 seconds could mean the difference between survival and extinction. The facility operated on a need-to-know basis. Most of the world's governments were unaware of its existence. Only a select few understood the true nature of what was being developed here. A complete reimagining of humanity's defensive capabilities. Deep in the mountain's secure levels, entire sections were dedicated to what the team called scenario modeling. Thousands of potential alien encounter scenarios were constantly being processed, with each simulation feeding back into the adaptive system's learning algorithms. We're not just preparing for a known threat, Andrew often told his team. We're preparing for the unknown. For the possibility that everything we understand about warfare, about survival, might need to be completely rewritten. Outside, the Rocky Mountains stood as silent sentinels. Snow-capped peaks gave no hint of the technological marvel hidden within their rocky embrace. Satellite communications were carefully scrambled, electromagnetic signatures meticulously masked. The Zarkacs thought they were approaching a vulnerable target. They had no idea they were sailing into a technological storm that would redefine galactic warfare forever. Humanity was ready, and ready meant something entirely beyond what any civilization had ever conceived. The moment of first contact was nothing like anyone had predicted. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez sat in the command chair of the UEDF firebreak, his neural interface seamlessly merging with the ship's quantum computational core. Around him, the vessel hummed with a living intelligence that defied traditional understanding of machinery. Each system was more than a component. It was a responsive, adaptive organism. "Incoming wave signatures," reported Sarah Nakamura, the ship's quantum navigation specialist. Her fingers moved across holographic displays that seemed to breathe and shift with each touch. Multiple Zarkax vessels approaching. Configuration matches preliminary intelligence estimates. Marcus didn't respond verbally. He didn't need to. The ship was already analyzing, processing, predicting. In the underground mountain complex, Jennifer Hamilton watched multiple holographic displays, her expression a mixture of clinical focus and barely contained anticipation. Years of preparation were about to be tested in the most brutal proving ground imaginable. The Zarkax fleet dropped out of faster-than-light transit in a classic invasion formation. Massive vessels that looked like jagged metal nightmares, each one capable of reducing entire planetary surfaces to molten slag. Their weapon signatures were unprecedented, energy projections that could slice through most known defensive technologies like paper. They expected surrender. They expected submission. They had no idea what was coming. The first volley of Zarkax weapons erupted with enough energy to vaporize entire continental regions. Massive plasma-based projectiles that could superheat matter to temperatures that would instantly obliterate most known spacecraft. A traditional human fleet would have been reduced to cosmic dust in milliseconds. But this was not a traditional human fleet. The firebreak moved in ways that defied conventional physics. Where other ships would dodge, it predicted. Where standard defensive systems would block, it transformed. Marcus Rodriguez wasn't piloting a ship. He was conducting a quantum symphony of defensive and offensive capabilities. Weapon system reconfiguration in progress. The ship's AI reported, its voice a calm counterpoint to the chaos of combat. Predictive matrix shows 97.3% probability of successful countermeasure. The first Zarkax ships lost their forward attack formations before they even realized what was happening. Weapon signatures that should have been devastating simply disappeared. Redirected. Transformed. Sarah Nakamura tracked the combat dynamics with scientific precision. Energy dissipation at 68% efficiency. Predictive modeling shows complete defensive resolution in approximately 17 minutes. 17 minutes. A time span that would reshape galactic warfare forever. Each human vessel operated as part of a larger, interconnected system. Where one ship detected a threat, instantaneous quantum communication meant every other vessel could predict and counter before the threat fully materialized. The Zarkax were fighting an enemy that didn't just react. It anticipated. Captain Corlex watched in mounting horror from the stellar dominance. 37 of his most advanced vessels vanished from tactical displays in what seemed like a blink. No explosions, no traditional destruction. They simply ceased to exist as functional units. "Impossible," he muttered, his translation device rendering the word with a mix of disbelief and emerging terror. But it was happening. Humanity's first defense was more than a military response. It was a complete reimagining of combat itself. The quantum-integrated vessels danced between weapon signatures, reconfiguring themselves faster than the Zarkax computational systems could track. Energy weapons were absorbed, redirected, transformed. Entire attack formations dissolved not through brute force, but through an almost elegant deconstruction of their strategic capabilities. 17 minutes. That was all it took to shatter everything the Zarkax believed they knew about warfare. Marcus Rodriguez allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The first move had been made, and humanity was just getting started. Dr. Andrew Collins understood something fundamental about innovation that most scientists missed. True breakthrough wasn't about creating something new. It was about connecting what already existed in ways no one had imagined. The quantum AI system that powered Earth's defensive vessels was more than a computer. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of computational intelligence that redefined the very concept of technological adaptation. In the secure research facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, holographic displays showed the intricate neural pathways of the ship's computational core. Each pathway was a universe of potential, constantly shifting, learning, predicting. Where traditional AI systems followed predetermined algorithms, this system invented new algorithms in real time. We're not just processing information, Andrew explained to a small group of senior military advisors. We're creating a symbiotic relationship between human intuition and computational prediction. The core breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. Neuroscientists working alongside quantum physicists had discovered a way to create what they called predictive resonance networks. These weren't just advanced algorithms, they were computational systems that could learn, adapt, and evolve faster than any known technological platform. Each defensive vessel carried a unique computational core that was simultaneously centralized and distributed. Traditional military thinking viewed ships as individual units. Here, every vessel was part of a larger quantum-entangled network that could share information and adaptive strategies faster than light itself. Dr. Rebecca Martinez pulled up a series of combat simulations. "Watch this," she said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The displays showed multiple scenarios of alien attack vectors, each one dissolving as the human vessels adapted in milliseconds. The key was unpredictability. Traditional military design sought to create the most powerful weapon. The human approach focused on creating the most adaptive intelligence. A weapon that could think wasn't just a tool, it was a living strategy that could reinvent itself with each passing moment. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez experienced this firsthand during combat simulations. The neural interface that connected him to the firebreak was more than a control mechanism. It was a two-way communication system where human intuition and computational prediction merged into something entirely new. Target acquisition is no longer about seeing the enemy, Marcus often explained to new recruits. It's about understanding the entire computational landscape of potential conflict. The ship's AI could predict enemy movement patterns before the enemy even conceived of them. Weapon systems could be completely reconfigured between heartbeats. Where traditional military vessels were static platforms, these were living, breathing combat organisms. Sarah Nakamura, the quantum navigation specialist, demonstrated this during a classified briefing. She pulled up a series of combat scenarios that would make traditional military strategists weep. Entire alien attack formations were dismantled not through brute force, but through a kind of computational aikido, using the enemy's own momentum and predictability against them. "We're not just defending," she explained. "We're rewriting the entire concept of strategic engagement." Deep in the facility, entire teams worked on what they called adaptive response protocols. These weren't just defensive strategies. They were living computational ecosystems that could learn, predict, and transform faster than any known technological platform. The Zarkax believed they were approaching a vulnerable target. They had no concept of the computational storm that was waiting for them. Each human vessel carried within it the culmination of humanity's most audacious technological dreams. Quantum computing merged with neural network algorithms, predictive modeling that could anticipate conflict before it emerged, weapon systems that could reconfigure themselves faster than an enemy could comprehend. This wasn't just technology. This was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Chaos is not random. Chaos is a language most species are too rigid to understand. Jennifer Hamilton understood this principle better than anyone. Her team had spent years developing something far more sophisticated than traditional communication or combat strategies. They were creating a form of computational psychological warfare that would deconstruct the Zarkax from the inside out. In the underground command center, complex algorithms began to weave an intricate tapestry of disruption. Communication channels became more than simple transmission pathways. They transformed into living networks of strategic manipulation. Target their hierarchical communication protocols. Jennifer instructed her team of linguistic and computational experts. We're not just intercepting. We're rewriting their entire understanding of communication. The Zarkax communication network operated on a rigid hierarchical system that had served them through centuries of galactic conquest. Each message followed strict protocols. Each transmission carried layers of bureaucratic verification. They believed their system was impenetrable. They were wrong. Human computational specialists began introducing microscopic anomalies into the Zarkak's communication streams. These weren't simple disruptions. They were carefully crafted quantum-level intrusions that would slowly erode the alien fleet's psychological stability. Sarah Chen, the lead linguistic manipulation expert, studied holographic displays that showed the complex communication patterns. "We're not just sending messages," she explained to her team. "We're creating a form of computational cognitive dissonance." Each transmission carried subliminal patterns that would gradually undermine the Zarkak's collective psychological stability. Subtle frequency modulations that introduced microscopic uncertainties. Communication protocols that seemed to follow the rules, but didn't, not quite. Captain Corlex first noticed something was wrong during a routine fleet-wide communication update. The standard verification protocols seemed different, not incorrect, just slightly off in a way that he couldn't immediately identify. "Recalibrate communication systems," he ordered his communication officer, Vornak. But the anomalies continued. Minor discrepancies that seemed too small to be significant, but too persistent to be random. Navigation coordinates would show microscopic variations. Transmission verification codes would pass all standard checks, but something felt fundamentally wrong. The Zarkak's military was built on absolute certainty, absolute control, absolute predictability. Humanity was about to show them the power of controlled unpredictability. Dr. Andrew Collins watched the psychological warfare unfold with scientific fascination. "We're not just disrupting their communication," he explained during a classified briefing. "We're introducing a form of computational uncertainty that will gradually deconstruct their entire strategic framework." Each human vessel contributed to this intricate psychological assault. Where traditional military thinking saw combat as a physical confrontation, this was a multidimensional attack that targeted the very fabric of the Zarkak's collective consciousness. Communication patterns began to shift, minor at first, almost imperceptible. Fleet coordination became incrementally less efficient. Decision-making processes started to introduce microscopic hesitations. The rigid Zarkak's military hierarchy, which had been their greatest strength, began to show hairline fractures. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez monitored the psychological warfare from the firebreak. His neural interface allowed him to perceive the computational landscape in ways no traditional military commander could comprehend. He wasn't just watching a battle. He was orchestrating a symphony of strategic manipulation. "They're beginning to doubt," Marcus reported to Jennifer Hamilton. "Not consciously, but at a fundamental computational level." The Zarkak's had conquered countless civilizations through overwhelming force and absolute certainty. They had no defense against an enemy that could make them doubt the very foundations of their understanding. Psychological warfare wasn't about destruction. It was about introducing uncertainty. And uncertainty, in the right hands, was the most powerful weapon in the universe. Jupiter's massive gravitational field became the most unlikely battlefield in human history. The gas giant's swirling storms and complex magnetic environment provided more than a dramatic backdrop. It became a strategic canvas where humanity would redefine the very concept of space warfare. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez gripped the neural interface of the firebreak, feeling the ship's computational core merge with his own consciousness. This was more than a vessel. This was a living weapon that thought, adapted, and transformed faster than any known technological system in the galaxy. "Zarkak's fleet approaching," reported Sarah Nakamura, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. 17 primary battle groups, 43 secondary support vessels. The underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains fell into absolute silence. Jennifer Hamilton watched the holographic displays with a calculated calm that betrayed none of the tension building beneath the surface. Dr. Andrew Collins leaned forward, his fingers hovering just above a quantum computational interface that represented humanity's most audacious technological achievement. "This is the moment," he murmured, "where everything changes." The first wave of Zarkak's vessels emerged from faster-than-light transit, their weapon signatures blazing with enough energy to vaporize entire planetary regions. They expected submission. They expected total victory. They had no concept of what was waiting. The human vessels didn't just move. They danced. Each ship operated as part of a living, breathing computational network. Where traditional military vessels would form rigid defensive formations, these ships became a fluid, adaptive organism. Weapon systems reconfigured between heartbeats. Defensive capabilities transformed faster than the Zarkak's computational systems could track. Jupiter's complex magnetic fields became an unexpected ally. The human vessels used the gas giant's gravitational dynamics as both shield and weapon, redirecting energy signatures and creating computational blind spots that the Zarkaks couldn't comprehend. Adaptive Response Protocol engaged, the Firebreak's AI reported. Its voice carried no emotion, just pure, calculated efficiency. Marcus Rodriguez experienced the battle in a way no traditional military commander ever could. The neural interface allowed him to perceive the entire computational landscape simultaneously. He wasn't just fighting. He was orchestrating a multidimensional strategic symphony. The Zarkaks lost their first wave of vessels before they even understood what was happening. Entire battle groups simply disappeared, not destroyed in traditional explosions, simply neutralized with a level of precision that defied conventional understanding of warfare. Sarah Nakamura tracked the combat dynamics with scientific precision. Energy dissipation at 92% efficiency, she reported. Predictive modeling shows complete strategic resolution in approximately 9 minutes. 9 minutes to shatter everything the Zarkaks believed about military engagement. Each human vessel carried within it a quantum computational core that was simultaneously a weapon, a defensive system, and a living intelligence. They didn't just respond to threats. They anticipated them, predicted them, transformed them. The battle near Jupiter became more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of a fundamental technological revolution. Captain Corlex watched from the stellar dominance as his most advanced battle groups were systematically dismantled, not through brute force, but through a level of computational aikido that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Impossible, he muttered, his translation device rendering the word with a mixture of terror and disbelief. But it was happening. Jupiter's massive storms continued to swirl, indifferent to the technological revolution, unfolding within their gravitational embrace. Humanity was rewriting the rules of space warfare, and the galaxy would never be the same. 9 minutes. That was all it took to change everything. The counterattack began with a whisper. Jennifer Hamilton stood in the underground command center, her fingers moving across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Around her, a team of the world's most brilliant strategic minds worked with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. "We're not just going to defeat them," she murmured. "We're going to deconstruct their entire civilization." The human strategy was unlike any military approach in galactic history, where traditional warfare sought destruction. Humanity aimed for something far more sophisticated, a complete systemic dismantling of the Zarkaks Imperium's infrastructure. Dr. Andrew Collins had spent years developing what the team called cascading computational warfare. It wasn't about winning battles. It was about unraveling an entire civilization's technological and social fabric. "Their communication networks are our primary target," Andrew explained during the final briefing. "We're going to turn their own systems against them." The first phase began with microscopic infiltrations into the Zarkaks' primary communication relays. These weren't simple cyber attacks. They were quantum-level intrusions that would gradually erode the very foundation of the alien civilization's technological infrastructure. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez coordinated from the Firebreak, his neural interface allowing him to perceive the entire strategic landscape simultaneously. Each human vessel became more than a weapon. It was a living, thinking node in a massive computational network designed to systematically deconstruct the Zarkaks' defensive capabilities. Sarah Nakamura tracked the infiltration with scientific precision. "We're introducing computational mutations into their primary network," she reported. "Their entire communication infrastructure will begin to destabilize from within." The attack was elegant in its complexity. The human vessels didn't just target military installations. They targeted the very computational ecosystem that allowed the Zarkax Imperium to function. Supply lines began to mysteriously redirect. Military communication channels developed inexplicable delays. Strategic data became incrementally less reliable. The changes were so microscopic that they would be almost imperceptible at first, but they would compound with devastating efficiency. Captain Corlex watched in mounting horror as his Imperium began to unravel. Entire planetary defense systems became unreliable. Communication between star systems developed mysterious interruptions. The rigid hierarchy that had defined Zarkak's military might begin to show hairline fractures. "This is impossible," he muttered, his translation device rendering the words with a mixture of terror and disbelief. But it was happening. The human approach was fundamentally different from any known military strategy in galactic history. They weren't just fighting a war. They were conducting a precise, computational dismantling of an entire civilization's technological infrastructure. Entire Zarkax star systems found their defensive capabilities gradually compromised, not through direct attack, but through a sophisticated form of computational manipulation that would make traditional military strategies look like children's games. Dr. Rebecca Martinez pulled up holographic displays showing the cascading effects. "We're not destroying their technology," she explained. "We're fundamentally reimagining how technological systems can be compromised." The counterattack moved with a precision that defied traditional understanding of warfare. Where most civilizations saw conflict as a physical confrontation, humanity had transformed it into a computational chess match where the board itself was constantly changing. Military installations across Zarkax-controlled space began to experience systematic failures. Not catastrophic collapses, but gradual, almost imperceptible degradations that would compound with mathematical certainty. Lieutenant Rodriguez watched the strategic landscape unfold. "We're not just winning a war," he reported to Jennifer Hamilton. "We're rewriting the entire concept of strategic engagement." The Zarkax had conquered countless civilizations through overwhelming force and technological superiority. They had no defense against an enemy that could make their own technology turn against them. Jupiter's distant storms continued to swirl, a silent witness to a technological revolution that would reshape galactic history forever. Humanity was no longer just defending. They were transforming the very nature of conflict itself. The silence was more profound than any battle cry. In the aftermath of humanity's unprecedented victory, the galactic community found itself confronting a fundamental transformation of understood reality. The Zarkax Imperium, a civilization that had dominated interstellar politics for centuries, had been completely dismantled not through traditional warfare, but through a form of technological and strategic engagement that defied every known military doctrine. Jennifer Hamilton sat in the underground command center, watching as the final computational cascade settled. Around her, the team that had spent decades preparing for this moment moved with a mixture of exhaustion and quiet triumph. "We didn't just win a war," Dr. Andrew Collins observed, his voice carrying a weight of historical significance. "We demonstrated an entirely new approach to civilization-level conflict." The surviving Zarkax leadership was summoned to a neutral diplomatic station. What remained of their once mighty imperium sat in stunned silence as human representatives explained the nature of their defeat. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez stood as part of the diplomatic delegation, his neural interface still subtly humming with the adaptive intelligence that had become humanity's greatest weapon. The Zarkax representatives struggled to comprehend the fundamental transformation they had just experienced. "Your technological superiority is not what defeated us," said Corlex, the former fleet captain who now represented the remnants of his civilization. "It was something far more profound." Sarah Nakamura stepped forward, her explanation both clinical and profound. "We didn't just develop better weapons," she explained. "We reimagined the entire concept of technological engagement. Your civilization viewed technology as a tool. We view it as a living, adaptive ecosystem. The diplomatic station, a massive construct floating in the void between star systems, became a crucible of galactic revaluation. Other spacefaring civilizations watched the proceedings with a mixture of terror and fascination. Dr. Rebecca Martinez presented the computational analysis that had systematically dismantled the Zarkax Imperium. It was less a military report and more a philosophical treatise on the nature of technological adaptation. Conflict is not about destruction, she explained. It's about understanding, about adaptation, about the ability to see beyond current limitations. The human approach had demonstrated something fundamental. True technological innovation was not about creating more powerful weapons, but about developing more adaptive intelligence. Korlex and the surviving Zarkax leadership found themselves in a position they had never anticipated. Their entire civilization, built on the premise of technological and military superiority, had been systematically deconstructed by an approach they couldn't even comprehend. "We thought power was about control," Korlex admitted during the proceedings. "You've shown us that true power is about understanding." The diplomatic discussions became more than a post-war negotiation. They were a fundamental revaluation of technological and strategic engagement. Other galactic civilizations began to understand the true significance of humanity's approach. It wasn't just a military victory. It was a complete reimagining of how technological systems could interact, adapt, and transform. Jennifer Hamilton watched the proceedings with a calculated calm. Years of preparation had led to this moment, not just a victory, but a fundamental transformation of galactic understanding. "We're not conquerors," she explained to the assembled representatives. "We're demonstrating a new approach to civilization-level interaction." The underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains stood as a testament to human potential, not as a military installation, but as a crucible of innovation that had fundamentally transformed humanity's place in the galaxy. Dr. Andrew Collins reflected on the journey. "We didn't just develop a new technology," he said. "We developed a new way of understanding technological potential." As the diplomatic proceedings continued, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had not just won a war. They had rewritten the very rules of galactic engagement. The universe would never be the same, and everything was just beginning.